So this could be an interesting development for, you know, everybody. It's an interesting development for Microsoft and their strategy. It's an interesting development for Xbox fans. It's an interesting development for PlayStation fans. It's just an interesting development kind of across the board. And, for me anyway, the way that I'm kind of looking at it, to be honest with you, it really kind of showcases how things can change on a dime. And you wonder why things change so quickly, and it's kind of easy to see, to be honest with you, that obviously things are going to continue to kind of change and go a certain way, but the way that Microsoft is moving, they clearly, a lot of people don't realize this, but even though Phil Spencer might say one thing, clearly he probably means something else a little bit. Obviously the Steam stuff, the Steam OS, that stuff worries Microsoft. That's why Microsoft talks extensively about the idea of Windows this, they're pushing Windows. And, the reason why they're doing that is because, to them, that's like what the basis of Microsoft is built off of. So you don't want to see that kind of go in such a negative way. But at the end of the day, they haven't really done a good job with making Windows something that is very viable. And, there's so much bloat and so much wrong with it that it really kind of is, kind of a net negative as far as I'm concerned. And I don't like, you see all the issues with it, with the ideas of what's going on currently with the Asus ROG and all that kind of stuff. But again, you have a lot of PlayStation fans. They don't want to see their games go to PC. I warned that Microsoft would ruin their console when they did that, and here we are. It's basically ruined, and they're kind of offloading people to PC, and those people don't even realize it. That's the really sad part, in my opinion. But the way that I'm kind of looking at this, the way that I'm kind of this is interesting because I knew that something like this could potentially happen. So that's the thing. And so I'm going to kind of jump right into it. So a lot of Xbox fans go, oh, well, we'll be able to play all those PlayStation games on the next Xbox, Magnus, because it's going to be basically a PC and have access to Steam. And, again, like, take it from the source. It depends on how you guys feel about this. But the other day it was funny because Jez Gordon from Windows Central, and I don't have anything but respect for this guy, right? I don't have anything against him. You know what I mean? He covers mostly Microsoft, but he had mentioned that PlayStation was going to do day and date with PC sooner or later, and and now he's kind of changing his tune, saying they're cooling off on the PlayStation on the PC stuff, right? So this is exactly what he said, and I'll link this. He says, I was talking about PlayStation doing day and date and going PC, and then I got off on a tangent about social aspects of PlayStation, and the reason Steam has become popular is because, at least partially, I think it is easier to go viral with Steam, and you think about logically that PlayStation would want to tap into that, right? And make their franchises go viral by being on Steam and being on a bigger platform. But I actually heard the complete opposite today from a very good source, that PlayStation is probably pulling back from PC, and also that the cross-buy button and the PlayStation PC iconography is from outdated old builds and is never going to be used. I don't actively investigate what PlayStation is doing because it's not my beat, but I do get PlayStation information incidentally sometimes by researching Microsoft stuff for my actual beat. But it does seem like the games that PlayStation released on PC didn't move the needle for them at all, partially because they were launched so late, but maybe they've used that as evidence that they shouldn't go any further and that they should remain more Nintendo in their approach to keep things more exclusive, except service games. But I do think those sort of single player games like Yotai and stuff, maybe they just don't come to PC, or they come to PC years later. So again, like, he is kind of giving his opinion on this stuff, and listen, right? Like, and the way that people kind of do this is a lot of people will go, well, Microsoft realistically is doing this, so that must mean PlayStation has to do it. The problem with that aspect is that Microsoft is a software company and PlayStation is a hardware company, and so when you have hardware, you have to be able to sell people on it, and exclusives are a big way to do that. And again, Microsoft bought so many big publishers and IP that they didn't have the hardware sales to support that, which means they have to go out there and make things multi-platform in order to make money. They were never going to be able to make that money back just with the few install base that they have, so they had to go and kind of put everywhere. And they would love to have what Sony has, which is like these huge franchises that everybody wants to go buy and have like 90 million install base and hit 100 million every time you have a console generation, you wouldn't need to do all this stuff and run through all the hoops that Microsoft does, right? Like Microsoft is throwing stuff on the wall and trying to hope that it sticks. And honestly, is it gonna stick? I think that's going to be the big issue. Like, I really feel like, the cloud stuff isn't. Everybody expects the cloud to be like this big thing that honestly kind of saves the day or whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, that might not be the case. Like, we see it kind of fail everywhere that it goes, and I think it's different when it comes to streaming a show or a movie versus a video game. It's got to be that one-to-one movement. If it's multiplayer, it's got to be you can't have that input lag at all, and that's never going to, no matter how good internet is or your internet is, that multiplayer stuff is just never going to work with streaming the game, because there's always going to be like you're playing through a cord that's hundreds of miles away hooked up to a platform, so there's always going to be some kind of delay there. And again, Microsoft is trying to bet on these places because he didn't do a good job of building their platform outside of a couple places, and they pulled out of almost everywhere else. So if you look at kind of what Xbox is doing, it's not exactly in my opinion in the best place that it's ever been at, but it's also in a weird situation because Microsoft has spent all this money, like $100 billion on these franchises and publishers, and they don't have the hardware to back it up. So obviously what they're doing is they're backing off the hardware. They're going to be releasing basically what's a PC, and they're going to say, okay, well, we don't care, if people are going to want to buy our stuff, then they're going to have to pay a premium, and some people will probably do that. That obviously by this point, a lot of people, like myself included, have a big Xbox library digitally kind of, worked on, and so when you look at what they're going to do, they'll probably, some people will, no matter how expensive it is. I mean, look, they raised Game Pass up to $30 a month, and you'd be foolish to think that there's still not millions of people that are going to keep subscribed to that. There would be people that still would subscribe to it at $40 a month, right? Because that's just the way it is. They think, okay, well, that's still less than buying a game a month. And so people look at things like gaming in a different kind of way. And for me anyway, I look at it and I go, well, wasn't a big selling point of this Magnus to be able to play Xbox games, right? Like or PlayStation games? And I kept telling people that regardless of whether that was happening or not, it wasn't the own that people were trying to make it out to be, because if you look at how Sony was doing things, their single player games weren't day and date. So like, it's different than what Xbox is doing, because Xbox is going day and date on PlayStation. These games are fully optimized for PlayStation. These games are supporting trophies natively. So that's a huge difference right there. If you were to buy this Xbox Magnus, let's say $1,200, let's just say for whatever reason that's going to be the cost of it, and let's say it has Steam on there or whatever, yeah, you can play PlayStation games through Steam, but you're not getting Xbox achievements, and those aren't optimized games for Xbox. Those are, and that's like always been one of the biggest problems I've had with like PC game. I mean, obviously the cheating is rampant on there, but the whole idea that the games just aren't really optimized. And look, the facts back this up. You can look at almost any recent game release, in particular the PlayStation game releases, and they are severely poorly optimized on PC and run pretty bad. So yeah, not exactly the biggest or best situation there. But so if you're an Xbox fan, how do you feel about this? If the PC games don't come anymore from Sony, the single player stuff, how do you feel? Are you still amped about getting this Xbox PC thing? Now that they have 0 exclusives, a platform that's going to cost over $1,000, no access to the PlayStation games like you thought, is that a raw deal? Is that a deal breaker? Like, that's stuff I'm very curious about. It's going to be like super interesting to see how it goes. And listen, it behooves Sony not to put their stuff in other places, right? Like, go back. I much prefer that. Just have a reason. You need a reason for people to buy your platform, regardless of what a lot of Xbox fans think. You definitely need that reason to go out there and get that stuff. And until for the longest time, Microsoft was doing okay with that. Like, they've never really tried, I think, in the last decade almost, to really have this great platform with great exclusives that draw people in. And they change direction so much that people leave pretty quickly. They're not going to wait around. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this. I appreciate it. Hope you guys all have a good day. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.